Now, before the festival of the Passover, Jesus knew that his hour had come to depart from this world and go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. The devil had already put it into the heart of Judas, son of Simon Iscariot, to betray him. And during supper, Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands, and that he had come from God and was going to God, got up from the table, took off his outer robe, and tied a towel around himself. Then he poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and to wipe them with the towel that was tied around him. He came to Simon Peter, who said to him, "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" Jesus answered, "You do not know now what I am doing, but later you will understand." Peter said to him, "You will never wash my feet." Jesus answered, "Unless I wash you, you have no share with me." After he had washed their feet, had put on his robe, and had returned to the table, Jesus said to them, "Do you know what I have done to you? You call me teacher and Lord, and you are right, for that is what I am. So if I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have set you an example, that you also should do as I have done to you."
Love takes practice. Of course, they don't tell us this in the romantic movies that come out around this time of year. You can't buy a Valentine's Day card that says, "Some days I wonder why I ever chose this. Nevertheless, happy Valentine's Day." Stores, they don't write a little disclaimer on the heart-shaped chocolate boxes that they sell, which reads, "Proceed at your own risk." They won't. It kind of strips the holiday of all its fun. But sometimes I wish they would. Because anyone who has ever loved anyone knows that love isn't always fun. Romance and tokens of affection and warm, fuzzy feelings may very well be the start of the journey, but a life of love, well, it just isn't that easy. Ask a mother who schedules her days around the needs of her child, or a newly married couple 6 months in, or a grown son, 50 years old, now charged with taking care of his elderly parent. They'll tell you, love takes practice. And if the history of Valentine's Day teaches us anything at all, it's that regardless of our current overemphasis on romance, it tells us that we are a people who have been attempting to get love right for a very long time. When Valentine's Day first had its origins, it actually started out as an agricultural celebration on February 15th. In an effort to care for their crops and their people, the Romans would get together and they would offer sacrifices to the god of the fields, and they would pray for fertility, both in their women and for their land. If you were a crop field or a really lucky woman, the men would take one of the goat hides that they had just sacrificed and they would go around and slap you with it as they prayed to God for your fertility. These are certainly odd ways of expressing one's love for another nowadays. I'm not sure I'd want Ren to slap me with a goat hide. But made February 14th Saint Valentine's Day. A day to commemorate one of 3 Saint Valentines that are in our history. Which one, we're not quite sure, but in each of them we catch a glimpse of the real stuff of love, not just the romance. One Saint Valentine was a priest who stood up for marriage when the government outlawed it because they thought single men made better soldiers. Another was a guy who helped Christians escape torture in Roman prisons. And the last was a guy who actually was in prison, and he sent a greeting to a young girl he loved and signed it from your Valentine, a phrase we also conveniently still use today. It wasn't actually until much later, though, during the Middle Ages, that romance was definitively associated with the holiday and became the mark of love. And since that day, all over the world, people have been trying to get love right, and they use Valentine's Day to celebrate all of the fun stuff of love. There's nothing wrong with this. But we know from studying history and our own culture that February 14th can conveniently leave out the other not-so-fun parts of love that crop up after all the romance during the other 364 days out of the year. There are days when love hurts us. The day the house sits in deafening silence after the divorce papers have all been signed. The day the bedroom is emptied and the kid goes off to make her way in the world. That moment when you notice the vacant space on the other side of the bed where a beloved once slept. There are days when love scares us. In the hospital room filled with beeping and breathing machines. And the fight that seems like it could be the one to finally break you. On the day you realize you've got nothing left to give and you just don't want to give anymore. Love is demanding. And we know from experience that it takes from us, what it takes from us is of much greater cost than a box of chocolates or a piece of jewelry. And it is a fickle friend because when we do not give it what it demands, because we are either too tired or too angry or feel too taken from, love has this distasteful way of shaming us into submission. As we think, I'm a bad mom. I'm a bad spouse, a bad son, a bad neighbor, a bad friend, a bad Christian. For all that we might gain from love, we wouldn't be very honest if we didn't admit that there are days, maybe even this Valentine's Day, when the only thing we feel from love is loss. But how can this be? Isn't love the thing everybody wants? Isn't it what most of us work our whole lives to obtain? To be loved and to love someone else? As Christ's followers, we know that to live a life which pleases God, we must walk in a way of love. Jesus tells his disciples that there is a new commandment, that we love one another just as Jesus has loved us. He says it plainly, that this is how we follow him. We should want to love. So what happens when we don't? I have to say that I'm profoundly grateful for the followers of Jesus who wrote the Gospels and who were willing to share about their blunders with love. If you'll notice, the disciples hardly ever get it right. In fact, in our passage for this morning, we see clearly that Judas and Peter are embarrassingly bad at it. Even after all those years of watching Jesus. and a basin ready to wash them in his unrelenting love, Judas's feet are dirty with betrayal. And Peter kept pulling his away like a stubborn child. For Judas, when it came to love, he was always hedging his bets. He could never totally be sure that Jesus was who he said, or would do what he said. And Judas didn't really want to think about what it would do to him if he actually took Jesus at his word. He knew the people who had it out for Jesus, and they were going to get him eventually. And so he'd take the safer road and squeal. Don't get emotionally involved. Keep himself out of trouble. And in the end, he'd be 30 pieces richer and just a little bit more alone in the end. Peter, on the other hand, his feet were just too dirty for the likes of Jesus. The teacher was certainly kind in his attempt to wash his feet, but an important person like Jesus need not trouble himself with something so trivial, something so menial. That's why they employed slaves. Love is all well and good, but a certain social order and propriety should not be neglected. How often are we like these two fickle disciples when it comes to love? Like Judas, always weighing our potential losses as we contemplate whether or not to really give ourselves away. His questions, what's in it for me? Just what will I lose? Do I really want to choose love when I know that my love might not be returned, or worse, it might hurt like hell? These are questions we all ask. Or are we like Peter, always pulling away from love, either because we don't think we deserve it or because we don't think that someone else does? Like Peter, maybe we think we're the dirty ones, too broken, too far gone, too ashamed to think that we're worthy of any sort of love. And that's in turn how we treat everyone else. As unlovable, unforgivable, and undeserving of anything more from us or anyone else. The trouble with our modern conceptions of love is that we think love is supposed to be this easy thing for us human beings. Just look at the way romance movies portray a loving relationship. You see a couple experiencing all the butterflies and falling in love with first dates and first kisses. You see them dream of a life together. You see an eventual proposal. Then it's till death do us part, and they live happily ever after. The end. End scene. We rarely see what happens afterward. When the couple angrily negotiates the laundry, or shuffles the kids off to here and there. We don't hear their rip-roaring fights in the middle of the night because both of them are downright exhausted and find themselves at the end of their rope. We don't see them in the day-to-day reality of what it takes to make life work together. And so we don't realize that in actuality, love, real love, comes much, much later. After the butterflies, and after the I do's, and after the negotiating, and after the hurtful words, and the I'm sorry's, and the real hard years, and the failures of two very imperfect people who are slowly learning the charity, and the humility, and the service it takes to love one another as best they can. Love takes practice. It takes practice in individual relationships, and it takes practice in community. We don't think about love like this, not even as Christ followers who are called to make real love our mission. And we don't do ourselves any favors, because by not thinking about love as the stuff of imperfect people in an imperfect world, we become almost paralyzed by our failure to achieve this impossible standard of perfect love that we've somehow concocted. what should be so profoundly hopeful about Jesus to those of us who struggle with love is that for a guy who seemed to love so effortlessly, he knew that for his disciples, love would take practice, and that sometimes love would fail. Having loved his own in the world, he loved them to the end, Scripture tells us. And as he knelt before these men who struggled and wrestled and resisted love and its costs, Jesus loved them to the end of their unbelief and their betrayal. And he resigned to love them no matter what he'd have to spend. As shame poured from their eyes, Jesus poured water on their feet and washed them in a kind of love that cleansed and forgave them for even the worst ways that they were failing at love. He showed them love through their confusion and despite their failures, because he knew who he was dealing with. Imperfect people in an imperfect world that were doing their best to try and learn a way of love. And that's probably why he called them to wash one another. He knew that they'd get dirty again. That despite their best efforts, they would fail. And when they did, they would need each other. They would need each other to wash each other's feet and remind each other of a love that is promised to show up and pour out over them again and again and again as they continue their struggle, their very human struggle, to try at love and fail and try again. Jesus loved them to the end and loves us to the end, in the hopes that someday we might learn the real stuff of love for ourselves. And the journey won't be perfect, not with our families, not with our neighbors, not with God. In fact, it'll probably be filled with second and third and 50th chances, because real love is just that way. It's imperfect. And we believe, as Christians and as United Methodists, that as we practice love, as we try and we fail and we keep trying, that we begin to see just how beautiful and deep and rich real love is. So much so that we would never trade it for the cheap, fun stuff that we celebrate once a year. And so on this Valentine's Day, let us not fix our eyes on a world that tries to sell us the cheap stuff, the cheap love, and the cheap grace, but on a God who from the very beginning has revealed to us the real stuff of love, because it is so much more satisfying in the end. Amen.